We are kicking off today with SmackDown, as in the show's main event, it was new WWE Tag Team Champions DIY who defended against former champs A-Town Down Under. In a rematch from last week, both teams had several close calls, but a couple of miscommunications between Waller and Theory led to them losing once again. Out of nowhere, Jacob Fatu emerged to attack Austin Theory and Grayson Waller while they argued post-match before taking out DIY in the ring. Since arriving in WWE, Fatu has possessed an X-factor that makes him stand out from the rest. In the opinion of many, he's the best new member of the Bloodline so far. Returning from commercial, Solo Sikoa demanded acknowledgement from the Bloodline, but was met with boos and chants for Roman Reigns. Solo discussed Jimmy Uso and Paul Heyman no longer acknowledging him, asserting that if Roman Reigns returns, he will recognize Solo as his tribal chief. Sikoa's attention then turned to Cody Rhodes, who he challenged to acknowledge him next, but before Solo could finish, the American Nightmare appeared on the show. Cody spoke about goals, both his goals and those of Solo's, and suggested they needed to consult with Nick Aldis, but a match between the two is on as far as he sees it. When the Bloodline surrounded Cody, Randy Orton tried to make the save, but this didn't help, and both Rhodes and the Viper took brutal beatdowns. Randy was even put through the announce table with a Shield-style triple powerbomb as a warning to any WWE superstars who plan to stand with Rhodes against the Bloodline. There was some interesting verbiage by Sikoa, who made the helpless Rhodes watch the powerbomb on Orton as he spoke about taking it all after SmackDown went off the air. Sikoa added that, "I'm the man now, this is my show, I run it all," in comments very similar to what a certain former Undisputed WWE Universal Champion has said in the past. The anticipation now builds towards SummerSlam, where Cody Rhodes vs. Solo Sikoa promises to be a significant matchup for both men in 2024. Rhodes did propose the match on SmackDown, but they agreed to save it for the biggest party of the summer, and the question is, how will Jacob Fatu play into things? Fatu seems to represent more of an assassin than a general enforcer for the Bloodline. His role is going to be huge in the coming days and could be a precursor to a title chase of his own. What's your perspective on the Bloodline storyline? Are you eager for Roman Reigns' return, or are you invested in Solo Sikoa's leadership? Share your thoughts in the comments. During SmackDown, Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton met in a backstage segment, and the Viper had some interesting words for the undisputed WWE Champion. Orton vowed that if Rhodes needed help against the Bloodline, then he'd be there for him, and interestingly, said he'd have Cody's back against anyone who comes after the WWE title. Many fans found this interesting, given that there's been teases that Orton is coming for the title, which would almost certainly mean turning heel and betraying the American Nightmare. Given Orton's reputation, fans know not to trust the Viper, and while Orton may have Cody's back for now, it remains to be seen just how loyal the veteran really is. Even without being on screen, Roman Reigns' presence continues to be felt on WWE TV, as the ongoing Bloodline saga has been Solo Sikoa's attempts to replace the former world champion. Sikoa's role as the tribal chief has been met with chants for Roman Reigns, as fans can't help but respect him, and now we have an idea as to when he could be back. A new report from PW Insider notes that Reigns is expected back in time for SummerSlam, and multiple sources in WWE expect him to be at the show. With that said, this doesn't mean he'll wrestle a match at the event, but it has been reported in the past that WWE had planned on Reigns being back for the biggest party of the summer. We are now just 3 weeks away from SummerSlam, and having Reigns return at the event 4 years after returning as a heel in 2020 would certainly be a huge deal. As for what exactly Reigns will do at the event, that remains to be seen, but are you excited at the prospect of Roman Reigns returning next month? Sound off in the comments. In the run-up to WrestleMania 40, Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins had some scathing comments for each other as part of their feud over the World Heavyweight Championship. Now it looks like the two will be working together again, as both have issues with CM Punk. But is there actual beef between the Scottish Warrior and the Visionary? Some believe so, given just how caustic their comments have been, but Fightful Select clarified this week that there's no legitimate beef between Rollins and McIntyre. Instead, the pair are simply very good at making it seem like they genuinely hate each other, which has clearly worked on a portion of the fan base, hence why this report needed publishing. Rollins and McIntyre will continue to be top names on Raw, and it's likely they'll share the ring again. And what do you make of all this? Let us know in the comments down below. Back to SmackDown as LA Knight came out to ringside after having a conversation with General Manager Nick Aldis and held a folder in his hand on the way to the ring. Knight reflected on not being able to win the Money in the Bank match last week, but reminded fans that he pinned US Champion Logan Paul to qualify for the match. Knight then turned his attention to the folder in his hand, revealing it to be a contract for a US title match against the Maverick at SummerSlam, signed by himself and Nick Aldis. The only signature missing is Paul's, and Knight invited him to the ring to sign, only to reveal that much like almost every week, the US champion was not at the show. Knight ended the segment by vowing to get his name on the dotted line and slither the Star-Spangled Prize from his grasp at SummerSlam. Logan Paul recently hit 250 days with the title, the longest reign of any current champion in WWE, but that's not hard to achieve given he's had just 2 title defenses so far. What are your thoughts on LA Knight getting a potential WWE United States Championship match at SummerSlam? Will WWE finally put a title on him? Sound off in the comments. Tiffany Stratton opened up SmackDown by declaring it Tiffy time and relished in becoming the youngest Money in the Bank winner in the 19-year history of the match concept. She took a jab at Trish Stratus, referencing their run-in at Money in the Bank, but Stratus wasn't there to disrupt her time on SmackDown to the disappointment of fans. Stratton warned Bayley to stay alert, prompting the WWE Women's Champion to confront her, and Bayley started by congratulating her on her big win in Toronto. Bayley knows all about what it takes to win the briefcase, and the pair were then joined by Nia Jax, and a brawl broke out, leading to a match between Nia Jax and Michin. This wasn't wholly one-sided, but it was a pretty dominant showcase for Jax, as Michin would only make small comebacks every so often before Jax would put her back on defense. In a notable moment after Jax got the win, she would raise one finger to the sky, a gesture associated with the Bloodline, and Jax is linked to the NYE wrestling family. Jax did the very same gesture at this year's Hall of Fame when Roman Reigns appeared, and this has left some speculating that the Queen of the Ring could become part of the Bloodline. After the match, Bayley tried to attack Nia Jax but was unsuccessful and got laid out by Jax and Stratton, and the Irresistible Force then posed with the buff Barbie. As Jax went to leave, Stratton turned to the referee to cash in her title shot on the fallen Bayley, but when Jax realized what was happening, Stratton changed her mind and left with the Queen. Stratton took to Instagram after the show to share her latest backstage photo shoot and a warning to the WWE Women's Division. WWE has announced Jax vs. Bayley for the Women's Championship at SummerSlam, but the question is, how will Stratton factor into the match, as she has an ongoing alliance with Jax? What do you think should happen at SummerSlam? Are you expecting Jax to win over Bayley only to be cashed in on by Stratton? Sound off in the comments below. This week's Raw went off the air with the returning Rhea Ripley confronting Dominik Mysterio, with fans left wondering what's to come for their on-screen relationship. The fans will get their answers on next week's Monday Night Raw, as it was announced during SmackDown that Ripley will open the show to address her return, Dominik, and Liv Morgan. In her absence, Liv Morgan has gotten awful close to Dominik and the Judgment Day, and what do you think Ripley will have to say next week on Raw? Since arriving on WWE TV last month, the Wyatt Six have captivated fans with their presence and cryptic messages that have had fans deciphering clues. So far, the group has only appeared on Raw, and while there are some that think the group is so popular that they should appear across the main roster, that won't be happening. A new report from Fightful Select reports that the Wyatt Six are internally considered members of the Raw roster and will remain on the red brand going forward. It had been speculated that the group would also appear on SmackDown, but that isn't the case, though it was also reported that the group will have a domino effect on the red brand. That means their influence will be felt across various Raw storylines, but it was stressed that the Wyatt Six will not interact with every program on Raw. For fans wanting their fix of the Wyatt Six, Monday Night Raw is the place to be, and would you prefer the group on both shows or just Raw? Sound off down below. Over the past week, it was reported that Stephanie Vaquer would be joining WWE after ending her time with CMLL and New Japan, and Shawn Michaels even welcomed her to the family. Now, WWE has officially confirmed Vaquer's arrival, as it was announced on Twitter that she is the newest signing and will appear at live events in Mexico City and Monterrey this weekend. Vaquer's journey to WWE has been a long one, as she's fought to become one of the best women competing today, and has also faced personal problems that have affected her career. On the 83 Weeks podcast, Conan told Eric Bischoff about one such incident while discussing Vaquer's career. He said, This probably happened last year, but Stephanie Vaquer and El Cuatero got into a fight. He was just messing around. He grabbed her by the throat and she had marks on her throat, and it was a real big deal. He actually went to jail, and he's still in jail. Arena Mexico put money so he couldn't get out of jail, and he even had his people who believed in his version of the story doing matches when they thought that he was innocent. This was a dark period of Vaquer's life, but she is now moving forward and is ready to take WWE by storm after impressing in several other promotions. There's still plenty of questions about Vaquer's future, though Shawn Michaels' tweet suggests she'll start in NXT, and hopefully we'll learn more at this weekend's live events. Now, it's safe to say that CM Punk has made his share of enemies in wrestling, as the former AEW World Champion has never been afraid to speak his mind. One name Punk has had an issue with is The Miz, someone who, unlike Punk, headlined WrestleMania, a spot many believe Punk has always deserved more. A few years ago, Punk ranted against The Miz online, telling the A-lister, "Go suck a blood money covered dick in Saudi Arabia, you fucking dork," but the pair have since made amends. Speaking on the Unlikely with Adrian Hernandez podcast, The Miz confirmed that Punk had apologized for his comments, which came as a surprise to the Raw superstar. "Yeah, I was in Chicago, and I was just walking down the stairs, and he was standing there. We just locked eyes. Remember, he left a long time ago and has never been back, right? And it always felt like it was a never going to happen type of thing. To see him backstage, I was like, what?" So we ended up having a really good conversation, and it was one of those moments where it was just guys talking, and we kind of just buried the hatchet, I guess you could say. Well, Punk probably shouldn't have said what he said about The Miz. It's admirable that he was able to reflect on his behavior and recognize why he needed to apologize for what happened. Now the pair are on good ground together and are both popular acts on Monday Night Raw. And what do you make of Punk apologizing to The Miz now that he's in WWE? It was at All Out 2023 that CJ Perry debuted for AEW, but after managing Andrade and then aligning with Miro, fans haven't seen her on TV since December of last year. Now, in a new interview with USA Today, Perry confirmed that her AEW run has come to an end, stating that she had just finished her time with Tony Khan's company. Perry added that she's now free to work with any promotion and is looking to continue being a manager, and in her own words, wants to be the next Paul Heyman. While Perry's exit has only now been confirmed, Fightful reports that it was part of a release that unfolded in April, but she simply didn't share the news publicly at the time. AEW added that Perry initially entered AEW on a per-appearance agreement, but later inked an official contract with the company. As to whether she'll return to WWE, that's unclear, as Perry said in the interview that AEW is more sports-based, but called WWE the greatest franchise in the world. When Perry was released in 2021, it was said that she was on a massive contract that WWE simply no longer wished to pay, but WWE's management has changed a lot since then. Whatever comes next, CJ Perry's time with AEW has ended, and fans will be interested to see where she goes next in her efforts as a pro wrestling manager. We're looking ahead to Survivor Series now, as the annual tradition will return this November, and now we may know when and where exactly the show will be. WrestleVotes reports that WWE has had significant discussions about bringing the show to Los Angeles, more specifically the Inuit Dome, on Saturday, November 30th. Survivor Series is a huge show, and just last year marked the returns of CM Punk and Randy Orton, and right now all signs point to the show taking place in the City of Angels. Since returning to WWE in January, Andrade's time with the company has been strange, as despite a role at WrestleMania 40, it's felt like he's been directionless for the most part. At Money in the Bank, Andrade failed to capture the men's briefcase, but it now looks like he'll finally enter an actual singles feud, given his comments this week. Before SmackDown went on the air, Byron Saxton asked Andrade what's next, and almost immediately, Carmelo Hayes cut him off. Hayes was also part of the Money in the Bank ladder match and talked trash to his fellow former NXT champion, and Andrade told Saxton that Melo is next for him. Like Andrade, there are many who feel Hayes has gone underutilized on SmackDown so far, so a feud between the two, given enough time, could be seriously helpful for both men. This coming January, Raw will make its blockbuster move to Netflix in time for the start of the road to WrestleMania 41, and the Bread brand is expected to see plenty of stars. With John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and even The Rock expected for Mania 41, Raw will have plenty of big names, but will the road to Vegas include Brock Lesnar? In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer reports that even when Raw moves to Netflix, WWE may not use Lesnar and won't until the ongoing legal issues are resolved. Lesnar was once a regular on the road to WrestleMania, but has been pulled from all plans due to his association with Janelle Grant's lawsuit against Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE. It was said in May that WWE had no plans to bring Lesnar back to TV anytime soon, and it appears this will remain the case even when Raw leaves TV for online streaming. But would you like to see Brock Lesnar return when Raw moves to Netflix? And if so, who should he feud with? Let us know in the comments section down below. Earlier this month, it was confirmed that Damon Kemp's time in NXT has ended, and his abrupt exit came not long after it was confirmed that his brother Gable Steveson was also gone. Kemp's contract will expire on August 13th, but he has been told that WWE will not be offering him a new deal, and now we know more about his departure. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it said that his exit has caused a lot of nervousness in the NXT roster, as he didn't appear like the kind of star who'd be released. For recent releases, there were clear reasons, such as Gable Steveson having a huge contract and not impressing, or Drew Gulak, who was released due to the Ronda Rousey situation. In Kemp's case, though, he was good in the ring and there was no negative reports about him, so for NXT to still release him has put many who are still on the roster on edge. On TV, Kemp had effectively been replaced by Tyvon Heights, and on this week's show, a segment played suggesting Kemp had been stuffed in the trunk of a car and taken care of. Ultimately, Damon Kemp's career in WWE has been cut short, much to the confusion of many in NXT. And what do you make of his release and the effect it's had on the NXT roster? At SummerSlam, Gunther will challenge World Heavyweight Champ Damian Priest, and while fans are pleased to see Gunther get a title shot, the opponent has raised some eyebrows. There's no shortage of fans who believe Gunther should be facing a top star like Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, or CM Punk instead of Priest, who many feel is beneath these names. This week, Gunther addressed the criticism and slammed fans who talk about wanting new talent elevated, but wish he wasn't facing Damian Priest. He explained, "I heard that too. People were like, why is Seth not involved? Why is Drew not involved? Why is Punk not involved? On the other hand, it's the same people that would complain that there are no new stars built, there's no opportunities for other people than the usual ones. And I feel going into a match with Priest, second or third PLE in the company, it's just a testament for management right now, how it's important to them to feature new faces in those big roles and situations, and it's now up to both of us to step up to it." After becoming the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion and King of the Ring, it will be interesting to see if he can dethrone Priest and ascend to the next level as World Champion. Do you think fans are wrong to want a bigger star as Gunther's challenger at SummerSlam, or should he be facing someone other than Damian Priest? Let us know in the comments. In addition to Gunther's success, Ludwig Kaiser has been on quite the singles run as of late, which has raised questions as to whether the era of Imperium has ended. On the Gorilla Position podcast, Gunther said it's important for Kaiser to do things on his own, but that the pair of them will stick together when it's necessary. Gunther pointed out that he's always been in favor of handling his own matches without the need for interference and expects the same from Kaiser moving forward. The pair have been united ever since coming to the main roster 2 years ago, but for the time being, Der Ring General is happy to see his ally go it alone. Back to SmackDown, as after a video package and no less than 5 minutes of waiting in the ring, Blair Davenport lost cleanly to Naomi in a disappointing outing. This loss was somewhat unexpected as Davenport is trying to establish herself, and while the pair had some good spots, you could see they lacked chemistry in some places. This kept the match being as good as it could have been, and a post-match handshake followed by a predictable attack by Davenport did little to give this match some spice. Interestingly, in a backstage segment, Davenport could be seen speaking to Isla Dawn in the background, teasing a potential alliance between Blair and the Unholy Alliance. On this week's Raw, the trio of Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, and Sonya Deville made an impact, and could the women's tag champs be looking to even the numbers? Time will tell. On last week's SmackDown, Legado del Fantasma attacked Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews stepped up and made the save, setting up a tag team match for this week's show. Corbin and Crews controlled for the most part, and Corbin attacked Santos Escobar on the outside, but he still found a way to get involved. Santos attacked Crews, allowing Angel to get the win for his team, and this marks 707 days since Corbin last tasted victory on the blue brand. His most recent SmackDown win came back on the August 5th, 2022 episode, and it remains to be seen when he'll break this losing streak. There was more action after this week's SmackDown went off the air as World Heavyweight Champion Damian Priest was in action against Jey Uso. Main event Jey was the crowd favorite, but in the end it was Priest who got the win, retaining his World Heavyweight title in the process. In another dark match, Braun Strowman demolished Carlito as the crowd at Worcester's DCU Center got their money's worth with a night full of WWE action. And we're ending with video game news as WWE superstars can, obviously, be found in WWE video games, but the wrestling promotion is stepping in the ring with Call of Duty. In a video teaser this week, it was revealed that WWE will be working with Call of Duty for the game's 5th season, which will kick off later this month on July 24th. WWE is certainly no stranger to collaborating with video games in the past, as they have done so numerous times, including Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair having custom skins in Fortnite. As for what WWE superstars appear in COD, that remains to be seen, but this is quite the tag team in the world of video games.